everyone, it's Jessica. Thanks for watching with me today. I'm super excited about this month's Mystery Envelope Challenge, which my friend Julie from Craft with Julie sent out to everyone. And she actually wants to take us back to an older challenge that we did a while ago. She sent us these pieces of paper from the Let's Party paper collection and this black glitter paper Mickey Mouse head. And what she wants us to do is to rack up some points based on things that we used. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. I decided to use these three 3x4 photos of my kids. We were shopping in Staples for some school supplies, and they had this fun little Crayola crayon setup there. And when I looked at the Let's Party papers that she sent us, even though they're kind of sprinkles and birthday themed, I thought that they also looked like they could go along with these crayons. So I'm going to use them to scrapbook this back to school memory when we were doing our shopping. I'm also going to bring in some of the Irresistibles cardstock. Now, if you haven't seen this before, it's really cool. I'll show you how to use it. I've pulled out my Let's Party paper pack and then also the mix-in collection that goes along with that same paper collection. So I think I'm going to pull from there to get all of my stuff. And I want to use a bunch of different techniques because the more techniques I use, the more points that I get to add together. This is the layout from Page Maps that I'm going to be using as my inspiration. And so I've just decided to use these two particular Irresistible cardstock pieces. One has little flowers on it and one is just a plaid. And then I pulled this one. This is actually that red gingham is from an older summer paper collection. This blue one here, I like that whiter side, but I'm going to go with the darker blue side. That is from the mix-in papers, and then I've got a zip strip, and then of course the papers that Julie sent me. So what I think I want to do here is to just cut a bunch of these up and start making them not quite triangles, but make them kind of narrow, taper down towards one end. I know I'm going to tuck them underneath my photos, so it doesn't really matter what the one end will look like. So it doesn't need to be quite a triangle, but I'm just going to randomly cut them, and I'm not even actually measuring or making them very even. You can see here I'm just putting it in my paper trimmer, and I'm making sure that I'm hitting that top corner to make the point, but otherwise, as far as the bottom angles go, I'm just really winging it and not doing anything super exact here. And I think that's okay. Based on that Page Maps inspiration piece, it really just kind of had a whimsical look to it, and as long as it tapers down, I think that's really all that I need. So I'm just cutting up a bunch of these papers here, and I will go ahead and angle all of them, and they're going to be different widths and sizes and everything, and I think that will be just fine. So for the challenge, we get points for everything that we do. So I get 1 point for every paper collection that I use. I get 1 point for every stamp set, 3 points for every technique, and then 5 points for using the paper she included, and 10 points if I can include that Mickey, that black glitter Mickey that she sent. And she does say that it can be hidden somewhere on the layout. So I'm trying to rack up as many points as I can. So this is what I've got so far, and I'm thinking that this is where those Irresistible papers will be perfect because I can use them to bring in some additional colors that I have that I want. Like I want some green in here, and I think I also want to do a little bit of pink. So I'm going to pull in Jade and Ballerina. I've decided to use that flower piece with the jade ink. So all I'm going to do is just grab a blending brush and pick up a little bit of ink from it. And then I will just add some ink to that Irresistible cardstock. And then what's going to happen is it will take to the paper except where that UV coating is. And so that part will remain white. And it's really cool because you can basically make your own pattern paper in any kind of color that you want it to be. You could even blend multiple colors together if you wanted to, but I'm just going to go with one piece will be jade and the other piece will be ballerina. What I like to do is after I put my inking on, I grab a dry cloth and I just kind of buff the paper to make sure that any of the excess ink that's sitting on top of that plastic UV coating gets wiped away. And it looks so cool. So I think I like that. I saved the little slivers that I had after cutting those two pieces down. That way I had just a little bit more of that color spread around that fan of papers coming off to the left side of my photos. And I had to change the orientation of my pictures a little bit too in order to work according to what they had on that Page Maps. So I'm going to carefully save these now that, of course, I've laid them all out. I'm not ready to glue anything down yet, but I do like the order that I have them in. So I'm going to carefully pull them off, and I'm going to go about adding in a few more techniques to my project so that I can get some points, because those are 3 points each. So I'm going to go technique crazy on this layout. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my little sanding tool, and I'm going to scratch the color off the edge of my Bluebird cardstock. That's what I'm going to build my page on. And then I'm going to pull out my all-purpose mat, which is great for making a mess and just wiping things up. And I'm going to do a little bit of texture paste through some stenciling. So I've just grabbed a stencil for my stash here. It's got a bunch of dots. And then I'm using my Bluebird ink pad to smush a little bit of ink down onto that all-purpose mat. And then I'm grabbing some texture paste. This is just, I think, some maybe Hero Arts or something like that I got at the store. And I'm grabbing a little bit out of the container, and then I'm going to mix it with that Bluebird ink. And it will turn into a fun blue color that will coordinate with my papers and this cardstock that I'm building it on. And I'm just going to spend a little bit of time mixing up until all of that white is gone and it all turns blue. Now, when I was done mixing this first batch, I thought it was still a little bit too light compared to what I wanted it to be. So in a clean spot on my mat, I just smushed my ink pad down again, and then I picked up that paste that I was mixing and I moved it down to the second ink spot just to get a little bit more color in there. And I was much happier. That darkened it up a little bit. And now I am ready to apply it through the stencil. So it just goes on like frosting or butter. It's really fun. It feels like you're frosting a cupcake or something. And I'm just going to put it through these holes here. I'm not trying to fill all the way in the stencil, because it's in that square shape. I just want it to look a little bit random and not exact, coming out from behind my papers. So I'm just kind of putting it down willy-nilly, and I'll put it in 3 spots. And the idea is that I can layer my papers over the top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the last little bit down here, and I'm trying to scrape it off so that way it's not too thick and it will dry fairly quickly. And it does actually dry pretty quickly, within a few minutes. While I'm making a mess and waiting for things to dry, I'm going to grab my Bluebird shimmer brush and get some ink flowing here. And then I will tap against it just to create some fun splatters. And I figure, if I got to set this aside to dry, I might as well do all of the things. So that's really fun. Okay, and then I will clean up and let that dry while I work on my next technique, which is just going to be edge distressing the papers with the coordinating ink pads. Actually, I've done a couple of techniques here. So I'm going to edge distress with ink, and then off camera, I did also take these papers and sew them through my sewing machine, and I've added a little bit of stitching. So I think I have quite a few techniques going on at this point. I've gone ahead and glued everything down. So let's see, I've done the coloring of the irresistibles, I've done some splattering, edge distressing with ink, sewing, and sanding, and texture paste. So I've got quite a few things checked off, and those are each going to be worth 3 points. So I found it easy when we do these challenges just to keep a list for myself, so that way I can tally it all up at the end. Okay, I pulled a couple of different stamp sets that I might want to use. I went for anything that was like school related at all. I don't end up using all of these, but I wanted to have a big selection because I do get 1 point for each different stamp set that I use. Okay, I did spend quite a bit of time building this piece here, and I really actually don't like it, and I don't end up using it, but I really wanted to because those crayons from that one stamp set were too perfect to go along with the layout, but I didn't really like the way that it ended up looking. So I'm kind of playing around with some of my parts and pieces here. I don't know. I did cut some jade colored stars out with my Cricut. And so while I'm kind of thinking about what to do, I'm going to go ahead and glue a couple of those stars together just to give them a little bit more dimension. I'm counting this as another technique because it is a technique that I like to do a lot, which is gluing like die cuts or, pieces together rather than using foam tape. So again, these are just from my Cricut, and I'm going to glue about 3 of them together. All the different sizes just to give them a little bit more dimension. So we're counting that as a technique. I also have these itty bitty tiny little stars that you probably can't really see there. And I got those from the circle shaker window thin cut. You can make your own confetti from that particular thin cut set. And so I just ran some cardstock through with the little star confetti and made itty bitty tiny little stars, and I'm going to scatter around as well. Okay, I took that Mickey and I flipped him upside down so it just looks like a little upside down circle poking out of the top of my journal spot there. And Julie did say that he could be hidden, but that was 10 points. So you know I was going to try to get that Mickey head in there somewhere. And I'm just gluing those little stars down around my star clusters. Okay, I'm going to go for one more technique here. I have grabbed one of my white gel pens, and at first I was going to do some faux stitching lines around the stars, but then they just weren't really big enough for that to work. So on the smaller size stars, I ended up doing a full line, and I just did some doodling all the way around the inside of the stars. And then on the bigger size stars, I had enough space to add that faux stitching. So I'm going to include that as a technique too, because I am doodling with a white gel pen. So yep, just kind of checking, you know, what else do I want to put on here? And I'm going to start keeping track too of my paper packs and my stamps so I don't get too terribly lost along the way. I'm adding white gel pen so I don't forget that I did that. And then let's see, now I need to add a couple more stamp sets here since I ended up not using those crayons. This is an oldie but a goodie. I don't even know what it's called. It's just always on my desk. I use it whenever I want to add dates to my layouts. So I'm just going to stamp the date down here in the bottom corner. And I think that ends up taking me to a total of 3 stamp sets. So I did use this one here for the word school. It's kind of a weird title, but that's going to be it. I wanted to use this one, but didn't end up using that. I used the current January stamp of the month, so that's 2, and then my date one was 3. So 3 points for stamp sets. Altogether, I used 4 different paper packs because I had that old summer collection and a mix-in, Let's Party, and Irresistibles. And technically, I used 2 different irresistible paper packs, but I just counted it as 1. So that's 4 points for the papers, 24 points for techniques, 5 points for the papers that Julie sent in the envelope, and 10 points for that hidden Mickey, which brings me to a total of 46 points for this layout. So this is a mystery envelope challenge, and all the ladies in the Makers with Heart group are playing along with the same rules and the same pieces of paper this month. So be sure to check the description box down below so that you can go see their videos and see how many points did they rack up on their projects. I can't wait to go check it out myself. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here with me today. As always, happy crafting. See you next time. Bye.